Wait, are you are you gonna count me in? Whatever. I'm just gonna go for it. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and as a child of the 80s, I'd love to say queens rule, but they don't. Queens lead. Being a queen means you are worthy to be a leader of people. The guests on our show do exactly that. They are leading the way in their businesses, families, and communities. And they're taking their rightful place in the spotlight, leading and inspiring the developing queens in all of us. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast.
Now here's your host, Amy Singleton, the queen of realness, leading conversations about business, life, and the real shit you want to know.
Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and today we are continuing our series of Oklahoma women, and I am so excited to be joined by my friend and local Okie, Brandi Gilstrap. Welcome, Brandi.
Hi, Amy. Nice to join you today again.
Yes, again, I tell you what, guys, Brandi and I, when we first met, we could literally talk for 8 hours. So we're going to try to keep this episode to about 30 minutes, but we have so much in common, and I'm really excited for her to tell you guys her incredible story. Brandi, let's jump right in. Just introduce yourself and tell people who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I always love this question because it's like, which part of me, right?
Right.
So it's like, I'm so multifaceted, but we all are. So my name's Brandi. I'm a life and business coach, and I really started my business out of a need and a pain to kind of find myself and find my identity. And so through obviously some self-discovery, a lot of therapy, which I know Amy and I have talked about that, a lot of therapy, a lot of coaching. I've healed from a lot of things that I grew up in a house of mental illness and addiction. And I'm just really excited to be on a journey to helping other people pursue purpose, pursue passion, pursue profits so that they have something that keeps them alive, even when times get tough. And that's really important to me.
Yeah. And for anybody that does not know you well or know your story, it is quite a story. So will you take us back to little girl Brandi and what that was like living here in Oklahoma as a girl in a home with that mental illness and addiction?
Yeah. So I always like going back to little Brandi. I'm really super into like inner child healing, having conversations with her. But as a child growing up, I really didn't understand who I was. I didn't have hobbies. I didn't play with Barbies. I didn't have like things that I enjoyed because I was honestly always in this constant state of like hyper arousal of like, what are my parents feeling? Oh, they're feeling this way. Like I need to feel this way. I was very codependent. And so I had no way of like understanding who I was and how to be a child. And so I was constantly raising my parents and like wondering like, oh, is dad passed out drunk on the couch? Is he okay? Let me go get him a blanket and cover him up and let me feed my mom or whatever it is. Or is my mom angry today because she's using, so I should kind of stay away from her. So it was a lot of really intense emotions that I was dealing with, but I honestly thought they were normal until 2018. I always get it confused, 2018 and 2019. When my mom attempted to take her life and she burned down her house and she was just on the edge of barely making it. And I had a wellness check. And if you guys don't know, this is super important to me, but anytime you have a family member you're worried about, maybe they're too far away, or maybe you don't want to be re-traumatized, you can call the police for a wellness check and they can go check on your family member for you. And so I'd done this all the time, but this time was different. Me and my husband were at lunch and he's like, Brandi, I don't want to go do that again. We're not going to go check on your mom again. We've checked on her 9 times this week. He's like, let's just call check. And luckily they were able to get to her just right before the smoke kind of had taken her over. And this was probably the most life-changing moment in my life. And although you know, it wasn't ideal, if it wouldn't have happened, I think I would have lived my whole life kind of in survival. But it was a time where I realized that my family had normalized the addiction and the trauma and the mental illness my entire life. And I realized, oh my gosh, okay, my dad actually is an alcoholic. Just because someone drinks every night, he is. And my mom actually is an addict and she is mentally ill. And she went to an intensive family therapy session at her rehab because this was the first time she went to rehab. And my brother sent her to a really beautiful place in Texas called Healing Springs. And I had realized finally that my whole life I had just been taking care of everybody else. And I was at such a loss for where I wanted to be and who I wanted to be. And it made sense though, because that's exactly why my mom was in the place that she was. She raised her siblings. Her mom was an addict. So it was very generational. And I was like, I've got to change this now that I'm aware of it. And that led me down a road of really deep, intensive therapy and led me into coaching. And it ultimately just led me into the purpose and the passion that I have today.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
And you say like, you say that, you say, and like, and my mom burned down her house with herself inside. Like you say that, like, that's so normal. And I know I've said a lot of things like that we normalize these things that have happened to us, but you said something really interesting in the midst of that. Like, I didn't know that this wasn't the way everyone else lived.
Exactly. 100. And I think that so many people, maybe it's not that intense, but there's some version of that, like someone listening onto this, that they're normalizing something in their life that is not okay. And it's not normal. And like the best way that you can, like the best way now that I look back, like try to become an observer of the things happening in your life. And like, if somebody else was telling you this story, would I think it's kind of different? But when we're so in it, we normalize it. And the awareness that this brought to me was insane, because I literally remember one of my friends, this is not a great part of the story, but we let her leave her mattress at our house because she was moving. And so me and my husband were putting the mattress in our living room when we were having movie nights in our living room. So I remember the night that I found out that, she almost wasn't alive, before I even went to the hospital to meet her, because she was in the ICU, I literally like collapsed onto the mattress. And I was like, I can't love the pain out of her anymore. What am I going to do with myself? Like this total like loss. Like I felt like I was grieving a part of myself. Like, wait, that's who I was. I like love people so much that I'm going to make them better. And realizing that no amount of love, no amount of codependency, no amount of lacking my boundaries changed her. So the only choice I had was to figure out how to change myself. Right. Wow. And that is the most intense realization, because we always think, well, when that person changes, then I always would say that, like, once my mom and dad are more stable, then I'll go after my dreams. Once I'm not worried about them dying in the middle of the night, then I'll figure out what I want to do with myself. But what I realized is I'm not going to love the pain out of them. They're going to have it either way. And so the best way to honor them is to actually honor myself. And that's just so important. Yeah.
That's so important. How old were you? I mean, I know this is like 2018, you said?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, had you had children yet when all this happened? Okay.
No. So my daughter's 2 now. So at this time, it was just me and my husband, and I hadn't had any children. And I promised, like, I'm never having children. I was too messed up. This life is too hard. Like, I'm never going to have children. Like, and my husband and I, like, people would be like, you guys got to have kids. You're so good with kids. I'm like, absolutely not. So this is at a time in my life. I mean, my husband and I have been together for like 15 years, like 12 years of that were like, we are not having children. And then I did a lot of really deep healing work. And this is super deep, like womb healing and all these things. And I actually had a lot of trapped guilt and shame from some of the decisions that I made in my life as growing up. And I had to do that. And now I have a little girl, and it's like, I was going to like not do this because of my own fears and insecurities. Like, it's pretty insane, and it's pretty beautiful to see. Like, I had to heal in order for her to come into fruition. So it's pretty beautiful.
Right. It's it strikes me so heavy lately, that this realization that we've all grown up in such different homes, and everything that we bring to every interaction we have is nothing more than the entire culmination of that programming. You mentioned womb healing, like from the womb and from birth, and every experience we've had from then until now is what is making us act the way we're acting in each one of those interactions. And when you grow up, we're in a series of Oklahoma, and I'm sure every state like just has their way, but Oklahoma, we just have this way, right? Like, this is the way we've always done it. And it's like
it's
the
not
only
broke,
thing we
don't fix
live.
it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
broke.
I literally had an entire breakthrough. And I think, it sounds like you sort of had this breakthrough and went and ran with it. But I wonder if you have to sometimes revisit this, because I do. Like, I just said to my therapist yesterday in tears after doing some EMDR over my financial insecurities. It doesn't matter, Brandi, if I have $2 in the bank, if I have $200,000 in the bank, it doesn't matter. My anxiety is constantly triggered about money. And I had to go through this therapy, and God is speaking to me during this therapy, and they says, you don't live in that house anymore. Oh, that's not the house you live in. And it actually then, like, the next step my brain told me was, you have to build your own house with your own set of rules. And then immediately I was convicted, and God said, no, you live in my house. And in my house, you follow my rules, and then the rest of your life, you won't have to worry about these earthly things like money and trauma and anxiety, because those are not from my house. And I didn't like mean to turn this into a spiritual, like,
Oh,
God
it's so,
thing, but it
it
was
gave me chills. Yeah.
right. It's like, so have you had to kind of go back and revisit that thing over and over that you've overcome? Because I don't want anyone listening to this to think like, oh, Amy and Brandi have it all together. They're over their childhood trauma. Like, hell no, it's a constant.
Literally, the reason why I like named my business Becoming Wildly Well is I kept stopping myself every time I realized like I had grown. And then if I had something else come up, I'm like, what the heck? Like, I thought I was there. I thought I was there, and I'd be so pissed. And then I'd get back into that shame cycle of like, did this therapy, I did this coaching, and then this is hitting me again. And then I realized like, we're never going to become the person we want to be. It's a constant becoming. Like, it's constantly like, if we take away this destination and be like, I'm trying, yes, queen.
Yes, queen. That's queen leadership right there. It's but like becoming.
Because if we don't like really truly embrace the journey, it's not just like this woo-woo thing to say, but like, if we don't embrace that, then we're always going to be short of what we want. Right. But if we're like, holy moly, like, look how far I've come, and I'm being re-triggered. Now I have these tools that I get to bring back up. Instead of bringing my trauma back up and re-traumatizing, I have these tools, and I'm going to go to my therapist when things are getting hard. I'm going to go to the scripture when things are getting hard. I'm going to go to this breathwork session when things get hard, but not expect things to stop being hard, because I think that is where we let ourselves get in the way. And we're like, and shame is such a killer of people's dreams, because shame is the lowest emotion on the energetic scale of frequency. And literally, if we're always shaming ourselves for not being in a certain space, we're never going to get where we want to go. So we embrace that journey and be like you said, oh, I'm being re-triggered about my money insecurities. I'm being re-triggered about this, and I'm still moving forward. Right. So it's embracing that. It's so important to me. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You said so much there I wanted to ask you about. So
you got me fired up about that.
I love it though, like, because this is just a conversation that I don't think enough of us are having. How, when you're talking about, oh my gosh, I did totally just lose my train of thought on what I wanted to ask you. The shame. Like, why is it that we like assume the shame of our parents and of our childhood and things that like we're not our fault, or we're not, like we were not even a party to.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we're all human and we all want to be good people. And when we feel like we're not hitting the mark, it's just a human emotion. It's like the first thing we all go to is shame or guilt, right? It's like, well, I should, like Tony Robbins always says, too many of us are shitting all over ourselves. I'm sure you've heard that. Like, someone was laughing at that the other day who hadn't heard it. And I was like, it's one of his most popular things. I never really understood it when I learned it 5 or 6 years ago. But now I'm like, holy moly, how many times have I shitted all over myself about the things that I wish somebody else would have done, or the expectations I had for somebody else, or even myself. And so I think as humans, we all want to be good people. I think that even people who aren't making good choices, like, I don't think anybody sets out in this world is like, I want to be a criminal, I want to be an addict. Right. Like, we don't want those things, but shame will actually get you in those cycles of wanting to use drugs so that you can numb it out. They'll get you in the cycle of wanting to, do crime or do these things to get attention. And I think we all have that just genetically within us of like, I want to be good. And if I don't measure up to this standard, then I'm not good enough. And we all desire to be enough in this world. And so the faster we can learn to shift out of it, then we don't have to get into that deep shame where it's hard to not want to numb out and use all the different TV, food, drugs. I mean, I feel like drugs and alcohol is talked about the most, but oh my gosh, how many people are like numbing out with TV? How many people are numbing out with just being busy and earning their worth by hustling and showing everybody, look what I'm doing. I used to be the prime example of that. Everything I did, I would be like, why was I doing that again? Oh, I don't consciously think I was doing it for attention, but subconsciously deep down, it was like, when I make this 6 figures, then I'm going to feel this way. When I run my brother's whole company and make it go then everybody's going to think I'm good. But we all are innately good. And once we know that, then we stop acting out of this like shame and we start acting out of worthiness. Right. And that's so important.
Oh man, that's so good. Are you sure you're not a therapist?
I just had enough therapy. I think it's like osmosis. Right? Like I got some extra therapeutic things in that.
Exactly. So tell me about the change then. So the change when you guys had checked on mom 9 times, the one time you decided to do that well check, and then the therapy began. What happens today? Because I know mom still
Yeah.
lives here in town, right? Mom
Yeah.
is still
Yeah. Yeah.
doing
That
mom
is,
things, and Brandy's
yeah.
doing Brandy things. So
Yeah.
what is the difference in your reaction and the action you take now versus
Yeah.
pre 2018?
That's so important to me because people that are listening to this, I know there's people that are twice my age that are still dealing with what I was dealing with. And I remember feeling so frustrated when I would listen to personal development books or I would go to conferences and it's like, you're 5 people in your circle. Like if they're not the best people in the world, you're never going to make it. And I'm like, but nobody's talking about like when they're your family and they actually need your help. And how do you love somebody without letting that take over your life? Because that's what I did for so long. So still to this day, my dad is still an alcoholic and he literally doesn't have a house. He hasn't had a house since I moved out of Norman and then he lived with me for a while. So he hasn't had anywhere to live in 10 years. He couch surfaced between my mom's house and my uncle's house and everybody's and he's an alcoholic and he hasn't had a job and he just does, odd jobs here and there. And my mom has been sober for 2 years, but she's extremely mentally ill and she has bipolar, schizoaffective disorder. She's schizophrenic. She hears voices. And recently she's been diagnosed with dementia. So although nothing has really changed, what has changed is my ability to, first of all, I hate this word and I've fought it my whole life, but it really is to surrender to God and say like, God, I know that I sometimes try to act like I'm God, but I know that I'm not. And so please show me your way and please show me that I cannot control everything because at the end of the day, if I keep trying, I'm going to find myself in the same places that they're in because I'm trying to be the savior that they were for everybody else and they forgot about themselves. So that's the number one thing. And then secondly, I think realizing that you can love somebody and not be codependent with them. So one of the best things I ever heard in therapy, like this is like my first year in therapy, but I was learning what boundaries were. I didn't even understand that concept. And, I was like, yes, I'm going to have fierce boundaries. I've been reading about fierce boundaries. And my therapist looked at me, she said, Brandi, I love you, but I've been seeing you for a year or two now, and you're never going to have fierce boundaries. Right. You have a big heart. And so what you're going to have is loving boundaries. And that's going to feel so much better to you. And it's not this black or white, like if somebody does this drug, you delete them out of your life forever. It's like when they make that decision, then they can't be around you, but you get to still text them that you love them. You get to still let them know that you love them. You get to still invite them over for a monthly dinner if that makes it feel good. And so I kind of had to detach like helping them to loving them because that was not simultaneously. Like it's not like it used to be like when I help them, that means I love them. But it's like I can love them and let them be themselves, if that makes sense. So that's really important. Yeah. And then therapy, like it's always go back to therapy. When it gets extra hard, I've got to have that support system because if not, you're dumping on everybody else around you. And I just don't think that's fair to anybody else. So it's important to just have that third party that's like, hey, I know that you're going through this and I know this is really hard, but here's a place for you to process and to be held and supported.
Yeah, 100%. Therapy has been so helpful to me on and off throughout the last, I don't know, 15 years probably.
Yes, same. And every time I like don't go to therapy for a while, I'm like so proud of myself. And I'm like, I haven't been to therapy in like 6 months. I'm killing it. Like, I don't even need it. But then all of a sudden, like recently, even like this last month December through April or the end of March, are like the best. I mean, things were like really looking up and they still are, but I was like, this is it. Like I'm finally made it. And then like my mom got diagnosed with dementia. Things were going on with my husband. And I was like, okay, it's okay for me to want therapy right now because I feel like I'm at my maximum capacity of supporting myself. And now I need some extra help. And so there's no shame. There's no, like we said, like we got to this place and now no therapy is ever needed. We're never going to need a coach. We're never going to need assistance. It's like when we don't allow ourselves to feel that shame and be like, ooh, I get to ask for help again. That's actually so much courage and bravery to allow ourselves that support.
Yeah. I think so many of us, especially in business, have become so accustomed to putting on that I'm okay front, and just leaning into the help of another human being, whether that be a therapist, a friend, a family member, the lady sitting next to you at the bus stop, and whatever it is, just that human connection is something that is so missing. And I feel bad that sometimes I have to use my therapist as that human connection. It's just like that will actually sit there across from you and hold space for an entire hour. That's rare.
Yes.
Even with the best friend these days.
It's sad too, because I think, like you said, especially when you're a business owner, especially when you're a woman or a man, like I think this is definitely for men too, but for women who are trying to do big things, everybody thinks like she doesn't need the support. She doesn't need the help. She has it all figured out. I just had a conversation with my cousin the other day where I cried to her and she's like, but you don't need help. Like, I just thought that you're so much further ahead of me. So like, I just never thought to like ask you if you're okay. So that's why I always just get your help, because I think you're always fine. And I said, I'm still human though. No matter how much work I've done, no matter how much effort I've put in, and even if you feel like you're years behind me, there's never going to be a time that I'm not going to be a human. And so it's not fair to other people to assume that we're always okay, because the truth is we're still human. And I think most women that are high achievers, they need to say that, and other people need to hear it, because it's not fair. It's not fair.
It's more than just a meme. Check on your high achieving friends. They are not okay. Check on your happy friends. They are not okay. This is more than just a meme, people.
Literally, it's legitimate. And and even I say that and I still get so uncomfortable. Like, even though it's easy to say, like when I had to have that conversation with my cousin, I was like, hey, like I've been pouring into you a lot this last few months and I'm just not feeling very good today. I was also on my cycle. So she was like, I knew after she found out, I was like, I had this whole cry fest. And after she found out, she's like, wait a second, you're on your cycle and you're crying. You never do that. And I'm like, regardless, don't like not count those feelings. They were real. And it was still so uncomfortable. And I'm like, I still don't even know what to do with that, of like, is she going to check on me? Is she going to make sure I'm okay? And if she doesn't, I'm smart enough to know that like I have the therapist, I have my husband, I have created a support system around me. But also, that's a big thing we don't talk about enough either, is like we have to create like mutually beneficial win-win relationships, because the only thing it does to have a one-sided relationship is it drains us. And as people who care a lot and who are high achieving women, it's easy to have a lot of people want to come to us for advice. But I'm always like, I used to just let it happen. And now, like, very upfront, I'm like, hey, maybe I know you need me this moment, but I just want to make sure that this is going to be like a win-win relationship. Like one day I'm going to come back and need you. Are you going to be ready? Like, are you going to be okay with that? And it's so uncomfortable. That's how I never used to handle relationships like that. I was always the giver and never the receiver. And I'm like, I think having my daughter shifted that for me. I was like, every time I give my energy to somebody else, I'm taking it from her. So I need to make sure that whoever's coming with me, like we're going to be doing this thing together. And that's so important. So important.
That's huge. That's huge. Cause I mean, I don't know how many people ask me a day to pick my brain. Like my brain is so full of holes. I don't know if I have one left.
Yes. And that's exactly how I felt. It was like, well, Brandi would know that. And so people come to me, I'm like, I do. And I would just bluntly ask, and it's really awkward. Like, hey, I'd love to help you with that. And what do you think that you could do for me that would, and it sounds so like, it's not like who I used to be. Like I used to be like, but it's so important because I can give more of me when other people are pouring back into me too. Right. It's like this whole entire cycle. So if you're constantly picking, then there's not much left for me to give my family or to the people who are asking me for advice. So I just like, someone comes to me like, hey, do you have a referral for this? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I do. I know this girl, but like, what about you? Do you have a referral for this for me? Oh, wow. Like they have to actually spend some intentional time being like, how do I make this other person win too? And that's just how I live my life. And that's not how I lived my life until the last 2 years, but it's been game changing, because a lot of the people that are takers, because there is some people out there that they need to do the healing work and they've got so much ego in their way that they're not willing to like get on your level. And they have just kind of found their way out of my life. And it's not been a weird way. It's not been weird. It's just been like, we've just kind of blessed and released ourselves. And I think that's so important. And hoping, I'm the kind of person that prays, and I'm like, I pray that they're going to have a change of heart one day and they're going to come back and say, hey, I need help and I want to help you too. And then that's when we can remend that relationship.
Yeah, man, that's good. That's the stuff most of us are not doing, for sure.
No. Yeah.
Tell me, okay, so tell us a little bit about, like, I feel like we could talk the personal and feelings and therapy forever, but I want to hear more about becoming wildly well, about your business. And like, so first, tell us, you kind of briefly mentioned running your brother's company, but tell us kind of like, what has qualified you? We hear like what's qualified you to do this healing work. Like what's qualifying you to help these women start up their businesses and launch this stuff? And kind of how does that process work?
Yeah, love that. Okay, so when I was in college, like where I started working for my brother when I was 15, I was picking up cigarette butts in his office. And
I love it.
Yeah.
Was he the one smoking the cigarettes?
Yes. And everybody in the office but me. Everybody but me.
I love
so I was
it.
picking up cigarettes, and literally within like 3 months, I'm working in the office at 15 years old, and I'm calling DDUs, which were post offices all over the United States, making sure that our direct mail was delivered, because he did direct mail marketing for car dealers across the nation. Well, then within the next year, I'm like 16 years old, 17 years old, and I'm actually training the dealers how to sell their marketing material to the people who come in and say, like, I want a prize. Like, how do you like ship them into that? And I'm leading the whole, I mean, everybody, there's this whole thing about like car salesmen, and they're all scared, but like it was like so easy for me, and it just became really natural. And I could kind of give back what they gave to me, and I kind of just learned a lot. But then by the time I went to college, I was still working for my brother. I was continuing that. And at that time, I was kind of managing the whole entire company. And I graduated college, and he said, Brandi, if you're wanting to still work for me, I'm actually going to take my RV and I'm headed out of here because this is too much. And I've been doing this for too long and I'm just kind of burnt out. So can you like handle everything? And I'm like, sure. You know, I'm like 21 years old. I'm like, I don't really know. And in college, I ran 3 different companies. Like I got a degree in entrepreneurship and venture management, and the OU has the Price College has a really great program to teach people how to be entrepreneurs. And you actually have to start up little businesses and then sell them, and like sell products and go through the marketing. You have to hire a team. So I was selected as the president of my team. And then I had 20 people under me, and we all had to sell hats at the stadium during the OU games. And so there was that whole experience. And then I had been running my brother's company. But then when I graduated college, it was like full on. He's like, I'm hitting the road. I don't feel like this anymore. And do you want to keep it going? Because if not, I might just shut it down.
Wow.
So me and this lady named Doreen, she was always his right-hand man. I was like, Doreen, do you want to do this together? And she's like, yes, I love working from home, because she'd always worked from home and been able to have a lifestyle with her kids. She's like, I want to be able to still do this. I love this work. I love my customers. Let's go. So Doreen and I just took this company, and my brother was kind of in a bad financial position at the time, and he was just really overworked, and he had hired too many people, and financially it wasn't making sense. So we went from almost having to file bankruptcy to finally having a cash flow positive business, and not having to call and extend payment plans and ask the printers for more money and ask the printers for more time. And so while he's out traveling in the RV, I'm sitting there just hustling and grinding. And we get to this point, and I worked so dang hard, and I loved what I was doing. And I would wake up at 5 a.m. and get to the office at like 6 a.m. and I wouldn't leave till 8 p.m. And it was just like, it was very codependent, but I loved it. Right. Until I went on my honeymoon in 2017, and I had, my brother and I had probably 6 figures stacked up in the bank account. It's his business, but, and I felt so safe and so secure. And, I've spent my whole life being like, we're broke, we have financial insecurity, all these things. Yeah. But I went on honeymoon, and I come back, and he's like, hey, I took that money that we finally had that you made, we made together, and we saved, and we figured this out, and I invested it into this new company, and I'm starting this tech startup.
You're like, what?
And I was like mind blown. And it was a moment of like codependency realization, because first it started with my parents, and then it was my brother. And then I did it to this other lady who launched a conference, and they got better. The codependency got better over time. But I was like, wait a second, I don't want to do this chaos thing again. I don't want to be addicted to chaos. And that's just what this business for him, it was to distract him from his traumas. And for me, it was to distract me from my traumas. Right. And so it was just like, we would literally cause conflict in the company so that we could solve problems, because it was so fun to like, it was normal, right? We were used to this chaos and storms. And so after we had, I had run the whole company, it was a marketing agency. We went for, he made, I think his biggest year was like 18 million, something like that. And I was like, I don't want to do this again. I'm not feeling it. And I'm not feeling this vibe. And so I left the company finally. And after we had some we were both very codependent at the time. Neither of us had ever been to therapy. So we both we both separated, and I kind of went on to do my own thing. And I worked in a call center for 6 weeks, where literally they treated people like monkeys. Like you had to like call in. Like I went from running an entire like multi-million-dollar company to being like, what, I'm out of that, and I want something safe. And I still didn't feel good enough. And so I took a job that I was grossly overqualified for, because I wanted to feel like I could get hired for something outside of working for my brother. And I learned quickly in 6 weeks, like I would drive to work like a zombie, like, what am I doing to myself? And it was, I still hadn't had the therapy journey yet. And I was like, what is going on? And eventually I quit that. I started my business. It failed, which isn't talked about enough, but like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I was just writing a blog, and I was like, life, and it wasn't working out. Got a job again, became the executive assistant at a multi-billion dollar insurance agency. And the president and I worked really well together. I was his right-hand man. And I realized like all these people are doing their own things. Why am I not doing my own thing? And I don't need to be managed. Nobody's asking me like what to do. Like I'm literally running. I ran my brother's whole business. I'm running this whole business. Like, what am I doing with myself? And I know better, right? Like I know I have all these skills. And so Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, and Jenna Kutcher in 2020, they released a course that was basically like, turn your gifts into a business or turn your mess into a message and they taught everything that you needed to know from marketing to building funnels to how to use your story and how to extract your gifts and all these things. They put in a course, I took it, and then my life changed forever from there. And slowly it just, I mean, one thing after another, and here I am. If that's a good enough
so
story.
Incredible. Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. So tell me about one of your favorite clients that came to you and like kind of what was that journey like for her? I'm assuming you work with mostly women. Yeah.
My favorite client is actually happening right now. Like one of my favorite clients ever. So I write this all the time. And I know you are in marketing, so you know this, but like the customer journey and how much it can change and how, there's one avatar, but there's multiple avatars that you end up actually working with. Right. Yeah. And so I reflect on those things a lot so that I'm attracting the kind of people that I feel like are actually going to do the work, because when they do the work, then I also get to see that, and I get to see how my work can affect others. And so one of my favorite clients right now, which you need to have her on the podcast, by the way. Her name is Tia Dawn Photography. She's like,
oh my gosh, I love her. She did my headshots.
Okay. Yes. She needs to get on this.
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal. The most talented. She's an expert at what she does. And she's ready to go next level. She's ready to take like her expertise. Like I don't need to teach her photography because I'm not going to be able to do that. Right. But I'm going to show her how to use and craft like her expertise and to teach other photographers from all over the United States. Because right now she can only work with people that are in Oklahoma if she's only shooting. Right. Yeah. So we had our first call, and Amy, she did everything on the list. And not only did she do everything on the list, she went above and beyond and was like, and I'm going to do this and this. And that's the kind of people that I'm just here to guide people and to coach people, but I can't do the work for them. And there's been clients where I get them and I'm like, I'm so excited to help them. But this right here, which I think the mindset, it's not there. It's not ready. And so when it's not there, it's hard to go to that next level. And I think that's why it's so important to work with people that even if you don't have the mindset, like you're ready to actually do something different and get out of that cycle and put in the work, because the work could be therapy. The work could be actually doing strategy and setting up funnels and creating content. It might be strategy or it might be mindset, but I don't think you can have one or the other. I think you really have to integrate those, because if I only teach strategy, then it's going to, at a point, they're going to feel like, just like we are, new levels, new devils. So like, okay, I got here, but like, how do I get there? Right. Yeah. And so I think it's so important to teach the strategy and then the mindset along the way. And I think most important, I don't know how much you're into this, but like the nervous system work and the regulation that you literally have to do, especially if you grew up in a household, which my ideal client, I don't only want to serve people who like want to leave a legacy and rewire their family generations. But when I can get those kinds of people, it means even more to me, because I know what's on the line is not just this business or this amount of money. It's like changing your entire family's history is like full body chills. And so those people need the nervous system regulation, because they need to know when chaos happens in their business or you don't hit the certain money goal or the certain income, they're still safe. And even though it feels like a threat, because they're reminded of, like you said at the beginning of this call, they're reminded like, this is not your home anymore. But we live so long in that state that it does feel like anything that happens, our home is not safe, right? And so if we can't have a safe foundation, we can't go up Maslow's hierarchy of needs and reach the self-actualization journey that we all deeply desire and deserve to be on. So
that's right. So for people who don't understand maybe what we're talking about with the self-regulation, talk a little bit about some of the actual modalities that folks like us used to regulate the hell out of our emotions, because it is a roller coaster. And a mindset coach I worked with called them polarities, right? Like we're trying to keep it between the lines of polarities. So maybe you can explain a little bit about what we're talking about specifically.
Yeah, I love that. Because sometimes I use words and I'm like, okay, wait, what's nervous system regulation? So basically what's really important is well, entrepreneurship, whether you grew up in trauma or not, it's hard.
No kidding.
The best life ever. It's like you're constantly on this roller coaster. And so many people quit, you know, like they say there's some statistic that like 10 years of business and like only so many percentage, I don't even know what it is, survive, but it's a very low percentage. And it's because of the emotional turmoil and the fight or flight that can be put into our system. And so our nervous system regulates our thoughts, and our thoughts are what obviously create our life, right? And so we have what we call a nervous system, a central nervous system, and we either have fight or flight or rest and digest. And millions of years ago, when we were in fight or flight, it was safe because we were running away from our young. When the saber-toothed tigers were chasing us, we were running away from our young, we were protecting them, and it was good for us. Even now, when we get in a car wreck and we get in that panic mode, we're in fight or flight, and that's good for us. It's not like we never want to be there. It can serve us, but we don't want to be there when we have a felt sense of safety. We have a roof over our head. We have money in our bank account, and we still feel like, why am I so tense? Why am I freezing? Why am I avoiding things? Why am I procrastinating? Or why am I busying myself with things that don't matter and not actually moving the needle in my business? It's usually because you're in a state of fight or flight. Also causes gut problems. It also causes brain fog. I can give you a whole list of my life's history and tell you all the medical things that it can cause as well. Autoimmune diseases, all of these things. But in business, it causes this ability or it disables us from taking the action that we really need to take. And so we have to activate our vagus nerve, which is what allows our system to slow down, to get out of fight or flight, and to get in a state of rest and digest. And not only is it rest and digest, but that's where we can create with more ease. That's when we can actually feel the feelings of joy. When we're in fight or flight, we're thinking of like one thing, which is I need to survive. But when we get back into the state of rest and digest, it's the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic nervous system. A quick YouTube video will like blow your mind. But when we get into it, it's so important. This is the stuff that nobody talks about that is actually the thing that the really successful people are doing, but it doesn't sell as well. It doesn't sell as well as make 7 figures tomorrow, but you can't get there without all of these other things, right? And so we get in rest and digest, we can create as entrepreneurs again. Our content comes with more ease. Our ability to meet with clients and to talk about what we do feels more in alignment because we're actually able to feel safe. We're able to feel regulated. And so the best tools I use for this, which I'll die on a cross for this one, but breath work. Because breath work, it literally
I'm here for breath work.
Girl, it oxygenates your entire body, and it allows you to get out of this sense of fear, because fear and scarcity and lack and fight or flight, that all is in the enemy's playground. I just gave a speech about this on Sunday, but like literally the enemy's playground lives in fight or flight. It lives in the scarcity and the fear of like, oh my gosh, I didn't make money today in my business, then I must do this, right? And we allow ourselves through breath work. We can do it on our own. One of my favorite and most quick tools I give my clients is the 4-7-8 breath. You go in for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Do that 4 to 5 times before a big meeting, before a speech. Like I gave a speech the other day. I'm usually like really fast talker. And I was like, and I usually get a little shaky. I went to the bathroom and I did that a few times before I went up there. And I was like, why am I not like, I had no like shakings. And I was like, because I've regulated myself before going up there. So you do that before a big client pitch. You do that before you hear some bad news about your parents, or when you feel like you're in a financial situation, like whatever it is, get back to that alignment of like God's highest purpose over your life is that sense of like peace and rest and digest. So breath work. I also love EFT tapping. It's called emotional freedom technique. There's different points on your body that you can tap on, and it actually teaches you how to use a thought. So you find a thought that you've really been dealing with, like, I don't feel good enough to keep my business going because I'm not making the money I want. That could be something that a lot of my clients go through. So you tap on this is like, even though I know that I'm not making the money that I want right now, I know that I'm doing this for a purpose. And I know that this is going to go away eventually. Like you tap through, instead of denying it and not addressing it and just toxic positivity from like, I'm broke to I'm a millionaire. That's toxic, right? But you're acknowledging, even though I feel this about myself, it doesn't mean I'm any less or anymore. I am who I am. And I love that I'm still doing this. And it takes away that emotional charge and allows your brain to get back into that safety mode.
And you just tap in random places?
No, there's certain meridian points on your body. Yep, there's meridian points on your body. So one's like the top of your head, one's in between your eyes, the side of your eye, underneath your eye. Yeah,
I'm smacking myself. Listen, lady, you can do it.
Both. the meridian points, it's legit. And then you do it under here, you do it on your chin, your collarbone, and then right under your armpit, right before your breastbone. But you guys can, that's a quick Google search too, but the EFT tapping points are so important because it gets you your emotional, like the energy charge just becomes a lot more regulated. So instead of being so charged by this triggering situation, it's like, even though my mom just got diagnosed with dementia and I feel really frustrated because I'm trying to work, I'm trying to take care of her, I'm trying to take care of my child, you're addressing that and you're tapping through it. And then you say, even though those things are happening, I know I'm on the right path. I know I'm making the right decisions. And so you're allowing yourself to calm yourself and to get into that rest and digest again. So breath work, EFT tapping. And I said the 4-7-8 breath, but what I really recommend is booking like a full breath work. I won't say situation, but appointment.
Like session.
Session. Yes. I said situation. It's a situation too.
It is a situation. Listen, Joseph and I went through a situation with a nurse that came. He's a registered nurse, very much into psychedelics and plant medicine, and gave us this entire speech to a group of other entrepreneurs. Now, shockingly, Joseph and I, and maybe a couple other people in the room, super open to this. We've kind of done it before. Other people were like, what? We did about what I thought was 45 minutes. I think it ended up being like an hour and 15-minute breathwork session on yoga mats, the whole sensory deprivation, the whole 9 yards. And several people got up and were like, how was your nap? And I got up and Joseph got up, and Brandi, I met God.
Yeah.
Like
same. It's the closest.
I sat at his feet. I called him maker. I bawled and cried the entire time. It was phenomenal, like phenomenal. And when you set an intention with that kind of deep breathwork session, you know, like I don't think it, you can set an intention and get exactly what you're looking for.
And I wish more people weren't so afraid of it, because that just gives me chills, because there's some people have abused this tool and made it this very, like, it's not of God, or at least to like, it's too woo woo. Right. The truth is, it's literally like, it's okay to drink and to do these things, but it's not okay to use your breath to heal your body. Like you're literally doing nothing wrong. This isn't drugs. This is using your God-given ability to breathe and actually not be contracted. Like we run around all day, stuck, contracted, taking short breaths. It allows you to be literally with God. And every single time I do a breathwork session and I journal afterwards, the last breathwork session, or the one I did at my retreat, it was so beautiful because I was hosting this women's retreat. All these women were just breaking through. They were just like tears in everyone's eyes. They were screaming, they were releasing. And what came through to me, it was like the most beautiful experience. It said, like, God came through and he's like, Brandi, you're unbound. Like, you don't need to keep pretending like you are chained down. You've literally taken the chains off for not only yourself, not only your family, but you're here serving these women. And yet you always feel like you're not ready. You always feel like it's not good enough. But I'm trying to tell you that, like, you have literally broken the chains that you keep trying to break, but they're already broken. And those are the kinds of messages that breath work, it puts you in alignment with God, and it puts you in alignment with your parasympathetic nervous system and the truth of your human existence. Because the other things you're thinking that are not serving you, those are not truths. Those are the enemy's playground, you know? And
there's way bigger forces at play in this world than I think we want to give credit to, you know, and again, not to bring it all back to the Bible, but let's bring it back to the Bible. Like our war against other people, it is not against flesh and blood. And when you get into that kind of spirituality and deep breath work and that level of understanding, that's when you begin to have the level of understanding where you don't say things like, I hate people anymore.
Yes. You begin to have this.
Guess what? You are people.
Yes. And you begin to have this sense of, like, just empathy for others, of like, man. And like, for me, when I see people struggle, I'm like, God, I wish I could get them a breathwork session. And I also give people, like, every client that I have, I gift them a breathwork session, 3 of them. So we work together for 3 months. I'm like, you need to go to breathwork 3 times. We work together 6 months. I'm like, I want you to try to go 6 times, because we can sit here and talk about the strategy all day, but if you're stuck in your body, in your mind, we cannot get you where you want to go. So as soon as you have that realization of, like, that self-actualization that we're all after, like, you really are safe and everything really is temporary. Like, it's the most incredible anyways, that's one of my favorite tools is a full breathwork session.
Yes.
And I'm going to shout out.
We could go on forever about this stuff because we believe in it so much and we've seen it make a big difference in our lives and obviously the lives of people like Brandi's clients. So tell us, what does working with you look like? And how would someone take that first step?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have several options to work with me. The one I'm most excited about right now, because it's on top of my mind, is my retreat. I have a retreat coming up September 5th through the 8th, because you're releasing this in August. So that would make sense. So September 5th through the 8th, I have a retreat in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, and we're going to be going over all these things. We're going to be doing breath work. We're going to be connecting. We're going to also be doing some strategy after we do some deep energy work and some healing and some clearing. Then we're going to go into like, now how do we take aligned action with the highest version of ourselves? So the retreat, and the next thing that I have is one-on-one coaching, which is the most effective form of coaching. I've always done group programs, masterminds, but when you have a one-on-one coach, it's a game changer because we all have a different, unique set of skills, a different way that we need help and that we need support. And so I offer 3, 6, and 12-month one-on-one coaching, and the packages range from $3,000 to $12,000. And it comes with all those things we're talking about, but also not most importantly, because I think the mindset, the breath work, the nervous system work is the most important. And then we get into the strategy, how to create the funnels, how to deliver content in a way that actually serves your ideal client. And then I have a new program releasing. I'm hoping it'll be released by the time this podcast comes out, because it's called Becoming Wildly Well and Wealthy. And this is a group program for anyone who wants to start a business or who's learning to scale a business. And they want to do it in a way that creates sustainable growth instead of causing burnout. They want to focus on their mental and emotional wellness while they grow their wealth. So they want to be wildly well and wealthy. Because another little story of mine is every single person in my family has been an entrepreneur, and every single one of them has either failed or become extremely mentally ill or addicted. Because what's that quote, Amy? I know you know this, but of much is demanded, much is required, right? That quote. And when you have something on your heart in a way that you want to serve others, much is demanded and required. But it's more important for you to build sustainably than to build some big business and be like, you know what? Why did I sell myself? Why did I sell my soul? So this program really meets that wellness and that wealth that we all desire and deserve.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And I mean, obviously, you've watched person after person in your family try and fail and serve others until their death, basically, until the end of in ruin. So I love what you're doing for others. It's something that you can't see looking ahead as a business owner. You start out and you're like all excited and everything's great. And then like 8 months later, you're going, I hate doing the thing that I'm doing. I don't know why I have this as a business. I just wanted to do this thing. And so starting off with Brandi in that journey, it sounds like starting off with you can actually set them out on the right path. So if you're new or early on in starting your business, or even if you're established and looking for these mindset things that you're established and you don't want to quit, you don't want to get burned out.
That's exactly what it is. It's like I said, you're either building from a sustainable foundation or you're having to tear down and rebuild from a sustainable foundation. And those are the two clients I get. We're either starting, which is great because we're starting sustainably, or we have this 7-figure business and we're like, I do not have the life that I want. I have a client right now and I love her. She's like, I have this successful business. I have everything that I could want. I have a marriage. I have this, but I have no joy. I have no passion. I don't know what I love to do for a living. I don't know who I am. And I'm really actually tired of this business. And so it's not about like completely tearing it up, but it's about how do you come back to becoming emotionally well, mentally well, and then let your business be that overflow instead of trying to fill that lack and that scarcity of what you deeply desire.
That's right.
So important.
That's right. And thank you, Brandi, so much for coming on and sharing your story so candidly. I mean, this is the real stuff. It says it in the intro, guys. It's the real shit you want to know. This is the real stuff that matters, like in our lives, right? As women, as mothers, as business owners, as just people. So thank you, Brandi. Tell everybody, of course, everything will be down in the show notes, guys, but tell people where they can connect with you. What's the best place to consume your content or work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is becomingwildlywell.com, and there's an application page for every option that we talked about. I also have an Instagram at brandi.gilstrap, a Facebook, which is Brandi Gilstrap, and I have a Pinterest, but I don't really use it. So that's all I'll say.
There we go. Perfect. So go over to becomingwildlywell.com and hook up with Brandi, you guys. Thank you for listening to this episode. And Brandi, thank you for being a queen that leads.
Thank you, Amy.
The Queen's Lead podcast is recorded worldwide and produced by the kick-ass media team at the Height Digital home base in Nicaragua. Until our next episode, stay real, Queens, and go lead. Remember to tap that follow and leave your review. For freebies and more real, inspiring content you love, go to amysingleton.net and connect with Amy on her socials at The Real Amy Singleton.
One more thing. This is the legal language, what my lawyer wrote and what I need to read to you. This podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am Amy Singleton, and I'm just your friend. Although I may speak to many on this show, I am not a psychotherapist, a business coach, a doctor, a CPA, a lawyer, or probably anyone who should be giving you professional advice. This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your doctor, coach, or any other licensed professional. Got it? Good. Now go be a queen and follow me at The Real Amy Singleton.